Hey, greetings, my fellow philosophical thinkers. This is LL3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date is Saturday, June 30th, 2018. Oh, yeah. Man, time is flying this year, right? Good grief. And Independence Day is just on a Wednesday, so about good 4 days away to be exact. And hopefully everyone will be out there celebrating true freedom, exercising the natural-born rights, and not bellying up to the state, bending over for the system, and being enslaved, being the Uncle Toms and Aunt Mamas to the establishment. Yes, we all been swindled, stepped on, picked on, condemned one way or the other in our lives, including myself, and boldly admit that. I made my errors too when I was a young man in the past, but when I started getting wiser and looking at things a lot broader, step back in my past practices, and I just have to redeem myself in multiple ways. But it's not saying I'm a bad person. We all have our, say, potholes or mistakes in life. But I've been pretty damn blessed, I would say, to be very frank. And on this July 4th holiday, Independence Day, you should never go around trying to tell people how to think, what to do, practice what beliefs they have. If you violate others, then you're the enemy of freedom, of natural-born rights. I know I did talk about the last episode about the Declaration of Independence that was written by a modern version written by John Whitehead, which is fantastic. And hit that. Go to my last episode, read that link. If you can hear my voice, great. If not, read the link. You won't be disappointed. And, of course, many people still believe that we got to do things to keep us safe, and they don't know about the real reality is if you leave all your security in the hands of the government, it can bite you in the rear end when least expect it. Defy the Orwellian echo chamber. That's one of the areas people need to focus on. And of course, you're going to have folks like March for Our Lives, enough mom demand action, enough going to skew you out to attempt to allocate on do things to make yourselves better society. It's really disturbing because even the American Civil Liberties Union is not going to represent certain people on their freedom of speech. So they just compromise. Another compromise, ludicrous university, I would say. And it's a sad thing because a lot of good members in that organization are getting slapped in the face as well. I was listening to a podcast by Lions of Liberty, which they follow me on Twitter, which is pretty cool. And the guys, I like their shows, very good. It's called Electric Liberty Land, and everyone should check that show out. And now they're like cowering away on certain groups they don't want to talk about. Even if you carry firearms and try to prevent free speech, the American Civil Liberties Union or ACLU may not represent you. And I recommend all those members out there, call these people out. Everyone that donates their money, call them out. Or I guess it'd be another cowardly, ludicrous universe or union. You can make so many acronyms on the ACLU. And it's very disheartening because it's a fear factor. Some people may get sensitive. But you know what? These you need to get the hell out of the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned. To all you sensitive people with the sweet pie purebred syndrome and want to complain to the state that someone may get offended if they accidentally cut some of your lawn, which happened in Ohio, for goodness sakes. Instead of talk to the neighbors, they want to go, oh, police, they cut a little bit off my lawn, on part of my lawn, and I don't want to go to talk to the person. I'm too intimidated. I need someone to speak for me on my behalf. Bunch of Palmolivists. Absolutely. Of course, Maxine Waters, the Aunt Esther of Congress. She like to see her in the front line of the so-called Civil War. She really wants it. No, she'll cower away in a corner, let her bodyguards do all the dirty work, and her lackeys. That's right. I could title to those views. Not being negative, my friends, but if you're going to speak all this great thing, what people should do, take the initiative. You go on the front line. That's Dr. Martin Luther King did. And of course, Rosa Parks. All right, they stood for what was right. They didn't cower away and cry, little Bo Peep, and go, underdog, save me. They stood up for what was right. It doesn't matter what you look like, what color of your skin is, what's your ethnic background. If you're going to play this tyrannical fetish of playing underdog, save me, you're a twit. Those are your attributes. It's called ethics, not ethics. And of course, there's a lot of stuff happening on the border, and they got people out there saying, how dare you separate the children? Trumpsiety, blame it on President Trump. Yes, I'm a critical of that man as well, don't get me wrong. But one thing for sure, they love that witch hunting fetish, do they? And of course, this is one website from yahoo.com, unfortunately I forgot the name, but there's plenty of so-called political scientists around the world say President Trump's the worst U.S. president ever. And they say Abraham Lincoln was top George Washington and Federal Delano Roosevelt. I like to tell you folks that you better start doing your homework and instead of listening to these saps. Yeah, Abraham Lincoln, he never cared about the slaves. He said it was up to the states to make that happen. That was from their first inauguration. And of course, you remember, if you read the Conscription Act of 1863, the first draft in Union history, and of course, a lot of folks, a lot of them coming from Ireland, seeking refuge from their island because it was all being manifested with famine and disease. They decided to have the men go sign their document to be instant U.S. citizens and have them join the Union Army. A lot of them only knew Gaelic, for goodness sakes. That's what President Lincoln did. The best president ever, right? I recommend folks out there better start reading this book called The Real Lincoln by Thomas J. DiLorenzo. You'd be very surprised what that man has done. I know I've talked about him a few times. And of course, Franklin Delano Roosevelt did an executive order, turn in your goat or go to prison. Oh yeah, that's such a great leader, great president, right? How about Executive Order 1966? When he put people in internment camps that were mostly Americans, Japanese descent, German, and Italians as well. They never been to those countries. They want to fight for the United States, and they went to these detention centers, internment camps. You call that great leadership? Yeah, you folks better start really just looking at the bigger picture. With all due respect, I know a lot of folks who are listening understand where I'm coming from, and I thank you for that. But don't fall for this mainstream hype, what these dinkleberries have to say. Focus on your own personal goals. Don't let the state tell you how to do it when you wipe your rear ends. That's one of the things I always tell everyone out there. Never trust the government. In Latin means control of the mind, and I do digress. Well, so enough of that. Get that off my chest, and thank you for your patience. Okay, but first of all, this is interesting. I've checked. Actually, I want to see here, which is pretty damn cool. I got this from FightingMonarch.com. Came out today, to be exact. It's about the CIA-sponsored drug wars and big business of defense contracting. While Kennedy was killed, why we fought in Vietnam, and why we're still in Afghanistan. As it reads here, on November 22nd, 1963, JFK was shot. The government blamed the shooting on Lee Harvey Oswald, a Marine who defected to the Soviet Union but was mysteriously allowed back into the United States, even though he could not possibly have done it himself. 2 days later, Oswald was killed in police custody. The Warren Commission claimed up with crazy theories to explain what happened, including the magic bullet that was defying the laws of physics so a single shooter could be blamed. CIA was behind it, and they put out a memo countering criticism of the Warren report, stopped citizens from questioning the official narrative. See, mind control 101 as usual. Did you know the term conspiracy theorist was a term made popular by CIA to stop critical thinkers from asking questions about JFK assassination? Is a mimical counter-criticism of the Warren Report. The CIA set out to make the term conspiracy theorist weapon to be used against anyone who questioned the government's secret activities and programs. That's what they have to say on that, right? Absolutely. Politically minding thinkers who ask questions would be dismissed as conspiracy theorists, as I am today, including myself, all right? Look, third, Craig Tote himself. Now you know my name. Full name. My middle name is Lawrence. I have nothing to hide, right? Nah, freedom of choice is what I got. In fact, my daughter is now being kept from me because of this website. Her mother says it shows that I am dangerous. No court hearing has been held on the matter, and the expedient hearing has been denied, and my mother's lawyer has advised her to refuse visitation and to violate a court order. That's what happens when you exercise your right to free speech or to the press, but it will not stop me. Kathy O'Brien faced a similar situation, and it didn't stop her either. And there's a website here, Kathy O'Brien, an American hero. If you don't know Kathy O'Brien, what happened to her? She was involved in Project Monarch, if I was correct. Really wild stuff, man. And what happens is, I could give you a brief synopsis, because I read about it 18 years ago in a book called Coat Rapture, which was actually in reference to a chapter, is interviewed by Diablos Rex Church, who was a magister for the Church of Satan, but he resigned. He withdrew his membership. Still has his beliefs. But but it's very interesting. He talks about that. So I went a little further. That does exist. He didn't claim that Madonna was activated with that as well. So this is a claim. So I'm not saying it's all true. The Kennedy assassination is a good place for conspiracy theorists to start, and I recommend the Oliver Stone film JFK, which lays out the conspiracy. And Kevin Costner did a good job, and Oliver Stone did well. Kevin Costner played Judge Garrison. And ask yourself, if CIA killed the president in 1963 and his brother in 1968, what had they had to stop there? What else would they have done, and what they are doing now? And it's a little interesting, so not a brief history of the CIA, some of their practices, but it starts here. 1947, CIA is established under the guise of fighting communism. Under the agency, maintain corporate powers and trade monopolies worldwide. Can we say fascism? Absolutely. The CIA has also come to have a stronghold on the media. In Operation Mockingbird, their agencies recruits more than 400 journalists from at least 25 well-known news organizations: CBS, ABC, CBS, NBC, Reuters, Associated Press, Washington Post, and Time Magazine. All become CIA assets. All right, folks, so remember, observe responsibly, especially with those particular sites. 1952. Operation MKUltra, the CIA begins developing and using psychedelic drugs, LSD, in mind control experiments. In 1973, CIA Director Helms ordered all files destroyed. 1953, Iran, Operation Ajax, in service to British oil concerns. The CIA MI6 replaced popular government with the brutal Shah of Iran and his Soviet secret police. In 1979, the revolution broke out, 52 American hostages. Can we see the word blowback? 1954, Guatemala, Operation PB Success. Newly elected President Arbenz is assassinated by the CIA after he nationalized unused United Fruit Company land. 1961, Congo, Operation Barracuda. CIA helped Belgian intelligence to assassinate Lumumba. Mobutu, the epitome, this is in Congo, by the way, epitome of African kleptocracy, rules for the next 35 years. The tyrannical way, the tyrannical way. 1961, Dominican Republic, after the U.S. owns man dictator General Leopoldo Trujillo, business interests begin competing with the American corporation. CIA has him murdered. 1964, Brazil, CIA backs a military coup against the popular government of João Goulart. His replacement institutes South America's first death squad. 1965, Indonesia. Operation Hike, CIA overthrows the democratically elected government of Sukarno. His replacement, General Suharto, Fajardo murders between 500,000 and 1 million people. CIA provides the death list to the military junta. 1967, in Greece, CIA-backed King Constantine dismisses the democratically elected government of Pandadero and installed the military dictatorship of Papadopoulos, the first CIA agent to become a European premier. Sorry about that. Always tongue-tied. 1970, Cambodia. CIA overthrows overly neutral Prince Sihanouk and replaces with this pro-war Lon Nol, paving the way for the brutal Khmer Rouge dictator Pol Pot, who kills millions of his own citizens. Watch the killing fields of Cambodia when you have a chance. Or the movie called The Killing Fields, too. It came out around 81, 82. One moment. Okay, cool. So I'm going to continue on here. 1971, Haiti. U.S. trained troops helped ensure the transition of Papa Doc's dictatorship to his equally brutal son, 19-year-old baby Doc. 15 years later, the CIA quietly fly their man out to south of France for a comfortable retirement. 1973, Chile. Operation Full Belt. CIA overthrows democratically elected Salvador Allende and installs a military junta of General Pinochet. American corporate giant ITT offers the CIA $1 million to help with the effort. That happened on the attacks happened on September 11th to be exact. And if I'm correct, Henry Kissinger was involved and Chile wanted him for war crimes. Then, of course, around that time in 2001, look what happened. I don't have to explain it, but that actual articles about Kissinger was into the back burner. And nothing ever happened. How nice, right? 1975, Australia Prime Minister Donald Whitlam enrages the CIA by canceling joint CIA ASIS operations in Chile in a highly unorthodox move. The Governor General dismisses Whitlam's government. 1979, the CIA uses proceeds for the sale of illegal arms to Iran to fund rebel Contras who seek to overthrow the popularly elected Sandinista government. Interesting, yeah, because the whole Iran-Contra scandal. And, of course, when you look at these things, it's Civil War broke out, too, a year later. 1989, Panama. The United States invade Panama and overthrow its own CIA-paid asset of 20 years, dictator and cocaine drug lord General Manuel Noriega. Well, it looks like Manuel Noriega got a little bit too greedy. Movie, too, a sad movie, documentary called Panama Deception. How people in Panama really got fucked over, excuse my language, got shafted by the United States government on that. 1992, the president, from stealing top secret information for major defense contractors to stealing fuel efficiency secrets from Japanese automakers for General Motors, CIA gets increasingly involved in corporate espionage following the end of the Cold War. This is like a short history of the New World Order, IlluminatiRex.com, excuse me. Less than 2 months before JFK's assassination in the secret meeting, Robert McNamara recommended the withdrawal of American troops from Vietnam, and Kennedy agreed. Mick George Bundy, a member of Skull and Bones, attended the meeting. You can look at that sleaze bag. Yeah, you're not going to do anything. Of course, CIA Director George Herbert Walker Bush, whose involvement with the assassination I have described elsewhere, who was a member of Skull and Bones. There's a website, the Bush Family, Satanism, and Crimes Against America. Look it up. I will post all this on my footnotes. Meanwhile, Valerie Harriman, another member of Skull and Bones, has a stage coup in South Vietnam only 3 months earlier. He had ordered the assassination of South Vietnam's president without Kennedy's approval, which led to an increase of Viet Cong attacks and a series of 8 successive governments in South Vietnam. Harriman was single-handedly destabilizing the region, although He would later participate in peace talks while Bundy pressed for stronger American involvement, led of course by the CIA. Yep, of course, the little thing on 322. Although Kennedy had committed to withdrawal of U.S. troops, and the North Vietnamese had no idea of his stance. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy would have looked like a tough customer who would not back down. He had previously increased the number of military advisors by 18 times. That's 1,800%. Signaling his commitment to the country. On the other hand, Kennedy's successor, Lyndon Johnson, was preoccupied with domestic matters and inexperienced in international affairs. To some in North Vietnam, a switch from Kennedy to Johnson looked as though it would lead America to turn away from Vietnam under a new administration. The same day that Kennedy was shot, the Politburo of North Vietnam had just entered into a 2-week debate as to North Vietnam's position regarding the liberation of South Vietnam. Sounds like a coincidence. One faction, supported by the Soviet Union and led by Ho Chi Minh, supported a cautious approach under which North Vietnam would have minimal involvement in the war in the South. Another faction, supported by the People's Republic of China, as led by Le Duc, supported an aggressive approach under which North Vietnam would attack. With Kennedy out of the way, guess who won? Immediately after the CIA killed Kennedy, America's position on Vietnam changed. Johnson kept all of Kennedy's foreign advisors on board, and men like Bundy and Harriman continued to run the show. Days after Kennedy's burial, Johnson authorized CIA Op Plan 34-A, a program of commando raids against North Vietnam. And less than 1 year, Op Plan 34-A led to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, to America's retaliation, to the introduction of NVA's main force in the South, and to America's commitment to the war. While Kennedy had planned to withdraw all troops, Johnson increased America's commitment from 16,000 to 20,000 the year after the assassination. It looks as though CIA killed Kennedy as well as DM so they could draw the United States and the North Vietnamese into escalating war. But why? Of course, there were profits to be reaped by the corporate masters and cost over 1,353,000 lives. Dow made napalm, Monsanto made Agent Orange, Bell, Boeing, and Sikorsky made choppers, Lockheed, McDonnell, and Douglas made planes, and RMK, BRJ, the Vietnam builders, entered into no bid contracts. Department of Defense spent $168 million, that's $1 trillion in today's money, on a war we lost. One quote from George Orwell: "The war is not meant to be won, it is meant to be continuous." Yeah, God bless the war on terror, right? Be a patriot, pledge to the flag, respect the flag, but we can do whatever we want, even if it's unconstitutional. Precisely. As both lawyers and detectives say, follow the money, or as General Smedley Butler, who followed the Illuminati plot to overthrow the U.S. government, wrote War is a Racket, Smedley Butler, and the business plot. There's a website, you can look that up too. Hit all these links, bro. For folks, it's very cool. But there are also profits to be made in the Golden Triangle, next door to Vietnam. In the secret war in Laos, CIA worked with General Vang Pao to make the country's world's largest exporter of heroin. Using Air America, they flew drugs across Burma, Thailand, and Laos, while they also ran guns and traded slaves. Southeast Asia became the main supporter of raw materials for heroin in the United States while we wrapped in the flag. CIA poisoned Americans at home. The Great Pulpit has an excellent article on the subject, and you can look at it yourself. As noted there, the 1967 Opium War left Radicone and the KMT in control of 80% of the opium trade in Burma. During the duration of the KMT's dominance in northern Burma, the end of the World War II to 1960, his CIA subsidized army increased opium production by nearly 500%, from 80 tons to 500 tons annually. The Golden Triangle provides approximately 33% of the world's illicit opium trade. But after America withdrew from Vietnam, guess what happened? Heroin production plummeted back down to 160 tons in 1978 and 240 tons in 1979. Kushner stated that Richard Armitage, at the time an envoy in the American Embassy, financed drug smuggling to Vietnam and Bangkok from 1975 to 1979. CIA agents Daniel Arnold and Jerry Daniel trafficked weapons and drugs with Kushner. The operation was believed to be at its peak in 1975 and 76 under George Bush. In a letter to George Bush, Grits maintained his Coonshaw claim that he has once engaged in narcotics transactions with Richard Armitage, who later became the Assistant Secretary of Defense. Shackley, as well as other American officials. Bush was head of the CIA in 1976 when Coonshaw said he was selling drugs to top CIA officials. Grits said, strangely, nobody in the American government was interested in an investigation. I know that for a fact, yeah. And it tells you, there's a little map here too, tells you where all this is at. You'll definitely look at yourselves. Vietnam is the only one of main instances in which CIA has forced American involvement in the war, though which it makes money from illegal sales of slaves, guns, and drugs. And there's a lot of stuff in here, the maps and all that. Look at Afghanistan, as the article in the Republic notes. Despite the fact that Afghanistan supplied approximately 50% of the heroin used by Americans, the U.S. failed to intervene or investigate the Afghan drug industry for years. Instead, many of the individuals trafficking the drugs in Afghanistan were actually trained, armed, and funded by the CIA at the time. Opium production came to the gradual halt thanks to Taliban rule. By 2000, the Taliban had completely banned opium production and practically eradicated 9% of the world's heroin. So that's the more reason why the war on terror started in Afghanistan. This has to be stopped. So the CIA staged false flag attacks on the World Trade Center, and we invaded Afghanistan, which was absolutely no responsibility for 9/11. After the American invasion, the opium fields were producing in no time. You see that? Yeah. So everyone was dancing, getting shaving their beards. Yeah, we're free, yeah. And look what happens, you know? Of course, Afghanistan has deadly crop. It tells you how the productions were. That's how Taliban rule. This is by UN Office of Drug and Crime. So you can look it up yourself. Poppies are why soldiers are in Afghanistan. Here's a picture of one of our boys that was here to protect. And you can see it. Yay! He has his weapon. He's patrolling the opium fields. Ain't that nice? And of course, as with ISIS in the Middle East, there are corresponding decrease in women's rights and an increase in sexual slavery. We all know that ISIS is New World Order funded, and don't be, like I said, it'll be CIA involved as well. So if you look at the ISIS flag once again, the ones that have the golden ridges around it, it represents maritime law. So who is actually comforting this particular organization? And we'll just go on here, and they showed about how Afghanistan Kabul was in 1972, and I tracked the people wearing miniskirts and all that. Now look what happened in Kabul in 2012. They're all covered up. Meanwhile, we have completely destabilized Afghanistan, which, as Laura Logan pointed out, after 16 years of American involvement, is in worse shape than ever. Through the war in Afghanistan, American taxpayers have been defrauded at a cost between 841 billion. Wow, $841 billion and to $2 trillion. The $2 trillion. It just shows you all right here, according to Stastia and all that. Defense contractors outnumber our soldiers and companies like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Huntington, Ingalls, Leidos, and Aerojet Rocketdyne are raking in the taxpayer dollars. And of course, President Trump supports it, and all those cornballs in Congress as well, such as Insane McCain and Lindsey Graham. It tells you about the U.S. defense from contractors and troops. Gives you all the bars and all that. Some Business Insider. Interesting. Congressional Research Services. That's the name source. Meanwhile, at home, the banks are foreclosing on our homes, assuming we're even homeowners. That's what New World Order wants, and the CIA has helped them do it. Remember, birds of a feather flock together. And it calls about here about monthly foreclosures. It gives you a rundown on that. And loans delinquent in foreclosure has been skyrocketing from 2005 to 2010. This is from the calculatedriskinblog.com. But where all did the heroin go? That heroin go? Thanks to the war in Afghanistan, it is in the United States. It floods the streets people use, and they give up hope. Instead of being activists, they are addicts. Soldiers return with physical and psychological problems, and they turn to drugs. but there's still money to be made on them. The war on drugs started during the war in Vietnam, and although the United States has been less than 1/20th of or 5% of the world's population to reincarcerate about 1/4 or 25% of its prisoners. Half of them are in for drug offenses, and all this happens in the land of the free and home of the brave. All hail to victimless crime laws. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! We want to do things the tyrannical way. And it tells you about how when the drug wars and all that, state and federal prisons, started from 72, now skyrocketed like over $1.6 million. Okay, so that's from the Bureau of Justice Statistics Prisoner Series. Private companies like Core Civic, MTC, and CEO Geo Group have contracts to run the jails, and they have spent more than $45 million on lobbyists and campaign contributions to buy our politicians. You know, even the public prisons are just as dirty too. So just to give you a good example on that. You know, just give you an example. Like Florida, like they don't want to have prisoners grow food because the food lobbyist who supplies it to the prisons don't want it. They will get they'll lose money. Just to give you an example. Prisoners in adult private prisons went up to from 87 to 2001. Little under So that's from Private Adult Correctional Facility Census, Prison Index. In 2012, the Corrections Corporation of America sent a letter to 48 states offering to buy public prisons in exchange for a promise to keep prisons at 90% occupancy for 20 years. And in 2011, Arizona agreed to pay management and training corporations $3 million for empty beds when a 97% quota was not met. It's chump change next to the drug trading or world profiteering, but that can really give police state some motivation to go arrest some people. Like the war on terror, the war on drugs is against you. And you know what? I've been saying that for almost 16 over 16 years. The war on terror is a war with ourselves. That is a fact. That's why you always got to look at the fine lines and what has been occurring. And it really gets me. People still want to support victimless crime laws, such as drug offenders, or you're smoking marijuana in the middle of the street and you get handcuffed, shackled, and thrown in jail, which is a good thing. It's being decriminalized little by little. But Florida, you got the people in Tallahassee dragging their damn feet as usual, bending over, spreading their butt cheeks to the lobbyist groups. They're just an example, folks. So I'm just give you guys a shot. The fact is, I'm not afraid to call these clowns out. I call them up and say, hey, here's my number, call me. I give them my full name. Here's my number, call me if you want to refute it. They have no defense, no leeway, no merit. So it's one of the areas you got to really pay attention to, my friends, about the drug wars, the war on poverty, the war on terror is all the same. Let's piss our money away. Let the state take care of us. And all these folks out here do change. Look at that one woman that won for one of the primaries in her district that represents Bronx and Queens. Oh, such a great person. We can forget education and housing and all that. Like, I have your respect. But the truth of the matter is, you better start looking at the fine print before talking or rambling. Because the whole thing is, where's the money going to be going? And I got a helicopter over me because I'm at this city park garage. That's okay. And one moment. Cool. This is how far things go. If you're against the system, they want to take you out. It's been happening for so long, but one thing I'm real proud of, a lot of people are seeing the bigger picture, which is great. And a lot of folks now are having less confidence in government, which is good. Never trust these people, regardless, local, state, or federal. When you have sheriffs that are members of Homeland Security, they're not for you. They're federalized Uncle Toms, agents. I could give you a few, but I'll be digressing. So one of the things we gotta look at, my friends, we gotta stop the empire. We gotta say the hell with the military-industrial complex. If we can do a tax revolt, so be it. Things are happening. including the Federal Reserve. They're our enemy as well. They get off on illegal wars and seeing people getting slaughtered. They love that stuff. The New World Order, including the United Nations. The shysters in there love it. Those are the areas you got to look at, my friends. To be very frank, the CIA has to be disintegrated. I support intelligence for a national level. But when it comes to imperialism, it's unacceptable, illegal, or 100% unconstitutional. All right. So, the nice long article there. Well, I'm glad to read that for you folks. Here's just something that came out too, which is in reference with Press TV. I really talk about once in a while. It's an Iranian station in Tehran. Surge of British citizens getting EU nationality. What's what they have to say about this? Increasing number of British citizens are obtaining the nationality of other EU member states since the Brexit referendum, with German citizenship seeing the highest request. Hopefully, folks out there know your German, okay? In 2017, a total of 12,994 British citizens received the citizenship of one of the 17 EU member states for which the BBC has data. In 2016, this figure was 5,025 and only 5.025 and only 1,800 in 2015. No, 5,025 and only 1,800 in 2015. Excuse me. Germany has been the most popular member state for Britain seeking citizenship, with 7,493 people gained nationality in 2017, compared with 2,702 in the previous year, a 177% increase. The BBC reports that the rise is presumed to be a result of Britons who can meet the criteria seeking to keep their legal rights attached to the European Union membership. The 2017 figure is about 7 times above 2015 level. Dramatic increase is consistent across many countries. France was the second most popular nationality, jumping from 320 stands in 2015 to 1,518 last year, and then Belgium, where the increase was from 127 to 1,381. Interesting. It looks like some of these countries maybe are planning to separate from the European Union. EU nationalities, a bridge to more freedom. The new nationalities will guarantee the recipients the right to travel, live, and work through the EU after Britain leaves the bloc in March 2019, and they may also be able to pass their citizenship on to their children. This also means these individuals will be able to move and reside freely within the European Union and vote in the European Parliament elections. In most cases, those involved have also retained their British citizenship and so have become dual nationals. The rights of EU citizens in Britain continue living and working here after Brexit was one of the key sticking points of the early stages of the government negotiation with Brussels. In February, the government announced a major U-turn to give EU nationals who arrived during the Brexit transition period the right to remain indefinite in the UK. That marked a climb down from January, when Theresa May said that those arriving at the end of next March would not have the same rights as the people who were already here. So the whole thing is this, is just, it's more of a Club of Rome move. Okay, that's how I look at it. And right now, Brexit, and what happened in Britain, which I am happy for them, because it's just one of those things you gotta look at. They're trying to dictate to a nation or jurisdiction to bring all these certain people in. Instead of fighting these illegal wars, you're going to suffer because we say so. Britain has their right to succeed or separate from the European Union. And many countries as well, possible Hungary, a bunch of them are doing the same thing. So a lot of stuff is up in the air, including Italy as well. I know I talked about this in my past episodes. Though a lot of it may be for business purposes too. However, I'll say this: let the Club of Rome fall, as far as I'm concerned. That includes all kinds of these little charter unions, including the North American Union. If you recall, if you check on the World Cup for 2024, I think it is, 2026. You're 2026. 3 host nations: Canada, United States, and Mexico. North American Union, buddy. So they're going to try to go for the whole Merrill thing once again. NAU 101. So I say this. It's going to burn a lot of people, too. I guarantee you that. So that's one thing you got to look out for, my friends. Always pay attention. Right? Absolutely. Yeah, so the next one here came from, Freedom Post. And originally, if I'm correct, came from Free Thought Project. Yeah, it says here, taxpayers shell out $2.5 million after cop held 3-year-old girl at gunpoint as he beat her handcuffed mom. And you see a picture of Maxine Waters. Man, she is one ugly woman. Eesh. And dumb as well, yeah. This week, the taxpayers of Chicago were told they will be footing the bill to the tune of $2.5 million to repay an excessive force lawsuit that accused police of holding 3-year-old little girl at gunpoint while beating her handcuffed mother. You know what? One day, a person like that's going to get taken out. And you know what? And the people will support it. I guarantee you that. But we'll pursue this. We'll pursue. The lawsuit stemmed from a search warrant carried out in the home of Arthena Simmons in 2013. During the raid, according to the lawsuit, the entire family was severely abused and the 3-year-old suffered severe mental trauma. Labeled an expert as one of the worst cases of a child PTSD he's seen. On August 29, 2013, Chicago police executed a search warrant in an inner-city Chicago home in hopes of finding a drug dealer. Cops barged into the home of a 3-year-old of Davinia Simmons, where she lived with her grandparents and her mother, Arthea Simmons. An officer pointed and held a loaded gun at point-blank range to the chest of a 3-year-old Daviana, reports the News and Observer. During the raid, according to the lawsuit, not only did Simmons allege that police threatened her small daughter with the gun, but she said the girl saw police violently shake and strike Simmons at gunpoint at the head of the girl's grandmother. According to the lawsuit, while officers were searching the home, Viviana saw and heard an officer damaging and destroying her dolls, other toys, and bedroom furniture. Police were looking for an alleged drug dealer identified as Alonzo McFadden, who was in no way related to the Simmons family and did not live there. How nice, right? How nice. How sumptuous. Kind of, sort of. It's the only way. Absolutely. The entire raid and abuse were due to a mistake on the address on the warrant. Oh, I'm so sorry. Over the course of the lawsuit, the city produced thousands of pages of documents that led to the allegations of perjury. The documents, according to the Simmons lawsuit, show that officers were never disciplined for their role in holding a gun to the chest of a toddler, being handcuffed, beating her handcuffed mother, and assaulting the grandmother as well. Chicago! Whoa! Well, police state is great in Chicago! Whoa, receiving no say, how far please in Chicago? Okay, just back off. Being a little sarcastic, but this is how I think of these things, you know? Not until 3 years after they escaped accountability for the alleged mistreatment for the Simmons family did officers John O'Keefe and John Regaley, the officers assaulted on the crimes in the Simmons case, lose their police powers. However, it was not for their abuse in 2013. According to the lawsuit, the officers were caught justifying arrest with false claims that are similar to claims made in the Simmons case. The Bureau of Internal Affairs allegedly sought out the officers fired after deciding they lied under oath at a criminal trial, according to a report from Rare.us. Simmons' lawsuit uncovered a systematic problem of corruption and secrecy within the department, exposing how the city has routinely been producing sanitized personnel files in response for the request evidence and court orders, according to Simmons' lawyers. The settlement comes at a time when the Chicago Police Department is under fire for using excessive force against children. In fact, the 2017 Justice Department report lambasted the CPD, the horrible way they have treated children. The city was forced to respond to the report by claiming they pledged to overhaul police procedures and training. Yeah, end the war on drugs, you dimwits. As the AP point out, lawyers for Arthea Simmons, the girl's mother, and say some of the police departments in other U.S. cities have embraced far-reaching reforms in how officers should interact with children. Attorney Al Holford Jr. says a key element is for officers to recognize that brains of small children and teenagers process information differently than those of adults. However, as Holford explains, the pledged reforms in the Chicago Police Department do nothing to address how officers treat children during arrest in regard to meaningful reform on how to treat children, Holford said. Yeah, okay, sorry about that. It's not even on CPD's radar. Sadly, as in the case in nearly all police brutality instances, the only ones being held accountable for brutal tactics of the officers are the taxpayers. Illustrating the widespread problem within the department, Simmons' settlement is one of the several lawsuits just settled just this week that a total of $6 million. Until the officers themselves are held accountable for their own actions, we can expect this problem to remain the same. As for the little girl, who is now 8 years old, we are told that she will expect a lifetime of therapy for the traumatic abuse she suffered at the hands of Chicago's finest. No amount of money will ever heal that wound. That's right. So this is great cheers for the war on drugs. Hip, hip, hooray! Hip, hip, hooray! We'll bend over for the tyrannical way. That's just an example. How far are you going to let this go? Go on. That's why, my friends, fear is the greatest weapon. It's got to be countered with demoniac resistance. I just hear the same old crap over and over and over again. What you can do about it? Shut up. There's always something you can do. And this is why, don't get me wrong, there's some incredible people in this institution. I'm not going to do any stats and all that. You always have criminal elements, and what happened in Chicago PD and other police departments around the country is just an example. Tyranny's happening everywhere. We got to squash the damn thing, little by little. That's why I'm against civil asset forfeiture. Jeff Sessions wants to support it. I want him in the front line to start seizing people's stuff on his own. See a little Keeber guy. Oh yeah, well you know how I go. No, you get him. People will smack him like a bug that he is. That's one of the areas too that gets me, because one thing for sure, my friends, is playing truth, justice, and the good Tuesday way gets you nowhere. Yes, big slap in the face. Vigilance is the key to freedom. You can do it in your own towns. I'm not saying go around beating up on police officers for no apparent reason or anyone else. But you have the right to defend your families, defend your communities. When it comes to corruption. All right, because the bottom line is this. They need you more you need them. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it can be achieved. Because these bastards, these tyrannical tyrants, took all baby steps to fulfill their destiny. And we can counter it. Create more dents and drive these individuals crazy, because this is unacceptable. If they had children and someone did that to them, those guys will go be blasting people. Talk about those two officers, the Chicago officers, John O'Keefe and John Wrigley. All right, so speaking of what's going on with the borders and all that, and kids being separated, of course they all want to. Of course, you got all these donkeys from the Democrats, jackasses from the Democrats, are going around saying, you know, you can't be done this and that. But the truth of the matter is, my friends, it's all a bunch of hypocrisy. This one came from John Bovard a few days ago. It says from Mises Institute. It says here, that time the media cheered for Gestapo immigration tactics. Every Trump voter is effectively standing at the border like Nazis, going, you hear, you hear. MSNBC guest Danny Deutsch, probably related to Ted Deutsch, probably the bend of a bob and duel, declared on Friday. Former CIA director Michael Hayden also compared the Trump administration's immigration crackdown with Nazi concentration camps. He's like a guy who's real critical of Trump too. I post stuff on Facebook making fun of him as well. The media still showcases the anguish of parents and children forcibly separated at the southwestern border. 18 years ago, the media had a mirror image reaction, perhaps to the most famous immigration raid in American history, though some critics back then complained of Gestapo-like federal raid. Much of the media downplayed or whitewashed alleged brutality. On April 22nd, 2000, that was on a Saturday, early Saturday morning to be exact, 130 federal agents conducted a pre-dawn raid in Miami's Little Havana section to seize Elian Gonzalez, a 6-year-old Cuban boy. The raid shattered doors, broke a bed, roughed up Cuban Americans, and left 2 NBC cameramen on the ground, writhing in pain from stomach kicks or rifle butts in the head. The raid seemed to go off without a hitch until a photo surfaced taken by Associated Press stringer Alan Diaz showing a Border Patrol agent pointing a submachine gun toward the terrified boy, being held by a fisherman who rescued him 6 months earlier from the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, and Janet Reno thought it was a great thing. Make that scum queen rest in shame. While Trump administration's falsehood on immigration had been widely hammered, a few people recall the Clinton administration rhetorically backflipped. A few hours after the Elian raid, Deputy Attorney Eric Holder asserted in the press conference that the boy was not taken at a point of a gun. When challenged about the machine gun in the photo, Holder explained they were armed agents who went in, who were acting very, very sensitively. There goes your boy, the former Attorney General Eric Holder. Watch it, buddy. You go, I'm a butt boy. Tyrannical butt boy. I'll continue on here. Attorney General Janet Reno, when asked about the photo, stressed that the agent's finger was not on the trigger. But that is scantly consolation when asked agitated person is holding a Hetzler and Coke MP5 that sprays 800 rounds a minute. 2 days later, Reno declared one of the things is so important that his force was not used. It was show of force that prevented people. Oh, it was from getting hurt. Oh, yeah, they just knocked on the door. Go, okay, give us the kid, please. Spare me the moment. Stop lying to me. I'm glad that woman never became governor of Florida, because I would be calling her out every time. And when people ask me, oh, she did a nice thing, I go, that woman needs to be thrown in prison. Remember Waco, my friends. She was behind that as well. Fruits of her labor. When the White House spokesman John Lockhart asked whether federal agents had used excessive force, he stressed that the agents drove up in white minivans as if the colors of the vehicles proved it was a mission of mercy. Lockhart implored the media, "It's certainly my hope that those who are in business of describing such things to the public will use great care and perspective in how they presented Diaz's photos." As the film footage showed a female Immigration Naturalization Service agent carrying Elian out of the house and a look of horror on the boy's face, one cynic commented that he looked like a vampire, excitedly carrying away her breakfast. However, the INS chief Doris Mezzanier dismissed concern about the boy's well-being and stressed that Elian was quickly given Play-Doh after he was taken into custody. Mezzanier explained that squeezing the Play-Doh is the best thing that you can do for a child who might be experiencing stress. Mezzanier did not disclose which color of Play-Doh is the best antidote for facing the machine gun. The news media buttressed the Clinton administration storyline less than an hour after the raid. 3 hours after the raid. CBS News anchor Dan Rather interrupted the televising of Reno's press conference to assert, even if the photographer was in the house legally, there is a question of the privacy beginning with the privacy of the child. Rather was more concerned about the photograph of the boy's terror than about the terrorizing itself. New York Times refrained from running the AP photo on the front page, instead giving it treatment usually reserved for propaganda images from communist regimes. The photo appeared on page 16 and alongside by Times media critic to help readers put in context the apparent violence. New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman, in an article headline "Reno for President," declared that the machine gun photo warmed my heart and symbolized America as a country where the rule of law rules. This picture illustrates what happened to those who defy the law and how far our government and people will go to preserve it. But since the Clinton administration's attempt to seize the alien had been rebuffed by a federal appeals court 2 days earlier, the legality was shaky and rejected even by liberal icons such as Harvard law professor Lawrence Tribe. For much of the press corps, the real peril was that the Diaz picture will ignite all the crazies, fretted James Warren, Washington bureau chief of the Chicago Tribune, author Gary Willis, writing for the New York Times op-ed page, portrayed the feds as victims of citizens' distrust. Readiness people to deplore jackboot tactics reveals the intransigence that made the rescue necessary. It is difficult to believe that such sentiments occurred in the same nation or even the same century as the going backlash against ICE enforcement's tactics. It is a sign of progress that the news media no longer automatically cheers heavy-handed crackdowns by federal agents. The jury will remain out on that question at least until January 2021. Yep, and there's a bunch of links on there as well you can read for yourselves. I know that, my friends. I remember that time, and I seen the video. They didn't go in there and knock on the door politely. They took that boy. And I always told people this in good faith. By nature, he should be with his father. I'm not going to argue about that. However, how this was done, and so many people supported Reno's decision, you just create a precedent that one day it can happen to you. Kick in your doors. Do all these little pat-downs like little peasants. That's right. Look what happened the year after that, September 11th. You let the tyranny go, and you say, give up, belly up, I will submit to you. So folks like this in the press, prostitutes, ought to be ashamed of themselves. But others says they are questioning of the privacy. They went in there without any warrants. Something else could have been done. I can say that. But sometimes, too, if there was a claim that Elian's father was Castro's bellboy, if he was anti-Fidel, this wouldn't be an issue, correct? You got to look at that as well. So all those folks that said General did a great job, and you're talking back about Donald Trump was going on with the border, separating the children, nothing more than a bunch of damn hypocrites. You better start reading immigration laws. Congress are the ones who are involved, are responsible for making it happen, not the president. Okay? So, it's been going on for a good long time now. Trump's in there is exceptional. Give me a break. Like I said, I'm real critical of President Trump, but I don't have a witch hunting fetish or a case of Trumpsiety. That's how I see it. All right. Ooh, man. All right. We can do one more here. I know it's almost like an hour. A little over an hour. Here's some pretty cool news by Michael McHarry. It came out like 5 days ago, I would say, right? If I'm correct, about 5 days ago? Yeah, man. It's, I'll just read this right now. And this one's entitled Victory, I Beat a Government Lawsuit by Michael McHarry. He was the 10th Amendment senator. Last October, the city of Lexington sued me in an attempt to keep its mobile surveillance cameras secret. In a major victory for government transparency, Fayette Circuit Judge John Reynolds issued an order granting my appeal for a summary judgment last week. In simple terms, the judge rejected the city's argument for keeping the surveillance cameras secret in order to the Lexington Police Department to release all relevant records. My legal saga started last summer as surveillance cameras appeared in a local skateboard park. I submitted an open records request to the LPD in an effort to determine what other surveillance programs it operates in Lexington. The police department admitted to using 29 mobile surveillance cameras available for a variety of video surveillance operations. Cameras deployed as needed in support of active investigations in accordance with SOP BOI 93-46A. criteria for surveillance conducted a special investigation section. While the police department acknowledged the existence of these cameras, it refused to provide any additional information other than redacted documents disclosing costs. Police claimed information about the types of cameras used and the policies surrounding their use were exempt under the state's open records law. The LPD cited a statute that exempts certain documents related to Homeland Security, along with second statute exempting certain investigative reports. How does federal entity supersede the bluegrass state? Right? On the appeal, the Attorney General's office rejected both exemptions claimed by the LPD and ordered the cities to release the documents. On October 2nd, 2017, a constable served me with a summons. The lawsuit was clearly intended to intimidate me into going away. The initial complaint even asked the judge to award the city court costs. Think about that for a moment. I simply asked for information relating to government activity. In response, the city sued me, a taxpayer, and demanded I foot the legal bill. What a bunch of clowns, a bunch of boss hog butt lugs, Come on. So much for transparent government that serves we the people. Yeah, damn right. It's a shrewd strategy on the city's part. City officials likely assume I would not have the resources to pursue a court case. I would just drop the matter. They were correct about the first assumption, but fortunately the ACLU of Kentucky agreed to represent me in this case. In court, the police basically argued that disclosing information about their cameras will render them ineffective and potentially jeopardize officer safety. It remains unclear how knowing what kind of hidden cameras the police own would make them ineffective. It also asserted that police information about their surveillance activities would create an undue burden. In a nutshell, the city claimed that the investigation of crimes facilitated by the cameras constitutes an important government interest that warrants denial of the information. While these may sound like compelling arguments on the surface, the city of Lexington failed to provide any basis for their assertions. Judge Reynolds said the city did not meet the standard of clear and convincing evidence required by the statute. In sum, this court finds the plaintiff LFUCG had failed to assert an applicable provision of the KRS or other binding precedent which would allow the denial of information requested by Meharry. Therefore, LFUCG had failed to meet its burden of proof, and pursuant to ORA, Open Records Act, the requested information should be released for review by Meharry. The city will have 30 days to appeal or ask the circuit court for reconsideration. Otherwise, it must release the requested documents. I'm not particularly comfortable casting myself as a little guy fighting the system. As a National Communications Director here at the TAC, which is 10th Amendment Center, I had some firepower of my own and some resources at my disposal. Still, I could not have won this battle without the help of the ACLU of Kentucky and attorneys Clay Barkley and Heater Generic. I've been an average Lexingtonian. The city probably would have gotten its wish. I would have dropped the matter and gone away. Make no mistake, this is a huge win for the people of Lexington. Those of us who live in the city have a right to know what our government does in our name. We have the right to weigh in and decide whether or not the benefit of surveillance technology outweighs the potential for abuse and violation of our basic privacy rights. We have a right to insist government agencies operate potentially invasive technology with oversight and transparency in a manner that respects our civil liberties as a natural-born rights. But I'll continue on here. Government secrecy steals from the power, and as the saying goes, sunlight as the best antiseptic. The city's default position was to maintain secrecy, to keep the blinds closed, to slam the door in our face. Don't let the fundamental nature of what happened to me escape you. When you boil it all down, the city sued me because I asked questions it didn't want to answer. It kind of makes you wonder about our old adage, we are the government, doesn't it? Now, hopefully, we will get this kind of transparency we deserve. Whenever I talk about surveillance, people always ask me, what do you have to hide? Well, I've been asking that question about the city for nearly a year. I don't think a little transparent oversight is too much to ask for. I started a local group called We See You Watching Lexington to establish oversight, transparency, surveillance programs in the city. People shouldn't have to get sued in order to find out what kind of surveillance programs the city operates. Furthermore, the city should not operate this kind of potentially invasive technology without firm policies in place, directing how, when, and where it is used, and establishing how information is stored and shared. This is actually part of a broader movement of privacy localism that is taking on the surveillance state. The TSC has been involved in the community control over police surveillance, which is CCOPS initiative, from the beginning, and helped draft the model legislation for a local surveillance ordinance that creates some level of transparency and oversight over local surveillance programs. This is just more than just a victory for me or even the people of Lexington. This is a win for all of us who care about liberty, because it proves an important point. We can fight the government and win. Our efforts aren't in vain, and I can do this. Anybody can. Here's my challenge to you. Think of what I've done and build on it. Get involved in your local community. Fight. If you don't know how, we got some resources to help. I put together a series of short podcasts called Activism 101. They offer simple step-by-step advice for starting activism in your own town. There's a link for that, folks. Check it out. He's really good. I always admire his work. And even a person like myself, I should be hitting some of these meetings more often on certain issues and keep tabs on a local level, which I should be doing as well. But one thing I know for sure, when you have your facts right in front of their eyes, they can't refute it. Because one time I may have talked about this a few times, when I went to the Broward Commission's meeting on the speech permit, people talk about the First Amendment in Supreme Court cases, which is all well and good. I was the only one up there that laid down the Florida Constitution and the Broward Resolution, which nullifies certain language of the USA Patriot and Domestic Security Act, and he used about the Bill of Rights and the Florida Constitution are the keyholes of freedom and liberty and all that. I'm just paraphrasing, and I used that free speech, assembly, equality, and judicial process. So the area there, and I know one thing I can tell you this: their own city attorney, the county attorney, really freaked out. Just give me a cringe, give me a look, their eyes open up. But the crowd, the people who was there, they loved it, man. And after I was done, there was a 6-8 minute debate with themselves. So I made some waves, and anyone can. So you can't never say never, okay? All you gotta do is be organized, do your homework, and have a team, share information. You'd be surprised what you folks can achieve. We all got great gifts. Now you get technology via internet. Utilize it. Take advantage of it. Learn their laws. Learn your rights. And you'd be surprised what you can do. This is one great move about technology. We could move mountains. It's not going to happen overnight, but things can be achieved. Will it be perfect? Absolutely not. But you can keep them on their toes. And that's the noble thing to do, and your obligation as a citizen, resident, and voter, regardless of where you live. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you send me something that's interesting you may want to check out. Whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com// Loki Luck 3 or 3 eyes. If you want to be a donor, that would be awesome. Hit me on Gab, Yours, which is .org, OneWay.org, or BuddyList.co. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com, or to the encrypted one, especially with the Proton Mail account. Contact me at LokiLuck03@protonmail.com. All right, my friends, that's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.